You're watching PowerNation. From blowing up their engine on the dyno in spectacular fashion, I might add, to blowing out the world record at the drag strip,
the Firepunk diesel team always does something exciting. Today on Engine Power, they tell us all about it.
It's pretty rare that we get a world record-breaking drag truck in the Engine Power shop. So when Lavon Miller stopped by with his S10 featuring a Cummins inline-6 diesel power plant that makes over 3,000 horsepower, it most certainly caught our attention.
Recently, the truck broke the diesel world record during Lights Out 12 at South Georgia Motorsports Park. Running in the radial versus the world class, Firepunk's S10 overcame the 4-second barrier in the 8th mile, going 3.998 seconds at 182.67 miles per hour.
The power plant, aptly named the Executioner, is based on a 6.7 Cummins inline-6, featuring a billet aluminum block, 98mm single turbo, 5 stages of nitrous with water injection, and a beryllium plate to keep the valves sealed up under some serious pressure. It's designed and manufactured by D&J Precision Machine in Cambridge, Ohio.
Lavon, Drew, this is crazy. We haven't really had anything like this in the shop before, and we really appreciate you guys bringing it down and telling us about it. But tell us a little about the truck and what this is.
Well, this is obviously an S10 in its original form. It's an old Pro stock truck that we've done a lot of modifications to the chassis to fit a diesel power plant in it.
Yeah, this is some pretty serious hardware.
How much is this making? Let's start there. How much is this making?
Well, this engine dynoed was 3,214 horsepower, and it was, I believe, 3,630 pound-feet of torque, somewhere in there.
Something like that.
We originally had the cast Cummins block that he builds the Enforcer engine, which is a deck plate, steel ductile iron steel deck plate on top of the cast block, 1-inch longer rods, ductile iron sleeves, and that platform has worked well for us. We went about 100 passes on it at around 2,500 horsepower, and then we actually went to do some engine dyno testing with some different injectors and turbos and Hot Shot Secret's new oil, and on the engine dyno actually split the block right above the mains, and it separated the block. The whole engine came apart, and so there you're sitting there looking at it, and you're like, well, you really can't make the block stronger. And that's where Drew kind of had this idea stirring around in his head that, you know, I think he can make an aluminum version of this. The main reason we wanted aluminum so we can save weight for racing. And it's got the 1-inch taller deck already built into it.
Yep.
It's 1-inch, it's a little wider with the webbing on the side to add some reinforcement.
Yeah, we couldn't add material into the cam bore area and under the mains that well and still get the bore spacing and everything that we needed. So we kind of went outboard of the block and started designing the block so we had more strength in that cross section where we had failures in the deck plate engines.
Right.
So.
And then that has your tool steel bed plate. There's like 6 bolts per main, 5/8 studs. So it's a total of 1,000,000 pounds of clamping force holding the crank in. Because with an inline-6, everything's trying to go out the bottom.
No, so let's enter Hot Shot Secrets. Now, you were local to them. They wanted to do some testing and some development on one of their products. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
We had to have a chassis dyno in-house, and they called us and asked to rent some dyno time like normal. We didn't think much of it. When they showed up, instead of them bringing their truck and doing their own testing, they just brought 2 bottles of additive, and they said, we want you to test our products. You just tell us what the results are. So I took my 2016 in there. It had 30,000 miles on the time and had a fresh oil change of Brad Penn oil, so I knew everything was good and healthy. And we did 5 pulls back-to-back within 5 minutes of a baseline pull. And then we added the FR3 Hot Shot Secret additive to it, let the truck idle for 20 minutes, and then did 5 pulls back-to-back within 5 minutes and had like a 23 horsepower gain. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. You know, like I literally poured an additive in my oil and it
remember
reduced
you calling like,
yeah,
this stuff actually works.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
You know, it reduced enough friction to add horsepower. I was like, this is crazy. And sure, it makes believers out of people when you can prove the results right there on the dyno.
You actually conned them into making some racing oil.
Right. We've got all these race engines, transmissions. We need some racing oil. I know that they could be able to put something together that's specific for our industry and that's what they set out to do. So they actually developed the adrenaline racing oil for us, and that is a pure Group 4 PAO base oil. So it's like best of the best oil with a really good additive protection package. And then it's also infused with the FR3 with the carbon nanotechnology in it. And they have developed that into their racing oils that we use in this, and then we also use it in our trucks in the shop for our daily drivers, work trucks.
One of the hardest challenges we've had at the higher horsepower is keeping blow-by under control and keeping rings from getting tore up. And with the FR3 and the Hot Shots oil, we've definitely, like, we can see a blow-by reduction in the engine because we hold the oil film better on the sleeves. With the FR3 and Hot Shots oil, that the degradation doesn't happen.
It doesn't break down. We did, what, 17 dyno pulls on the engine dyno last year?
I think
and
so.
Then we made 99 passes on the track before we tore it down, and like the bearings literally look brand new. Like they still had the little marks from the dial bore gauge.
Yep.
Yep.
Still cross-hatching cylinder walls after all of that abuse.
Wow.
Now, this truck is a record breaker.
Well, really the big chase that we've been after for a long time was getting a diesel in the 3-second range in the 8th mile. So been kind of a chase to the threes. There's been a couple diesel dragsters that have been 404, 408, like they were knocking on the door, and we really wanted to do it with a door car. And this spring we were able to get that record when a 399.8 at 182 miles an hour. That was on a 315 radial tire. And it was a big accomplishment for us because it's not easy. You know, you can have all the horsepower that you want, but you have to be able to control it. So like we have a Bosch ECU and a power box system put together by Extra G Performance. So we have time-based fueling. We can build a fuel power curve, so we can come off the trans brake at about 1,400 horsepower and ramp that power curve up to 3,200. So we can control all our power by just controlling the fuel ramp. And
yeah, we run on the lean side of the fuel curve,
Yes.
So as we add fuel, it actually adds temperature. We run so lean that as you add nitrous, it cools the engine back down or cools the EGTs back down because
Right.
we're running clear on the lean side of the fuel curve.
Yeah, if you
and that
watch-
gives us control, so the ECU can also save the engine.
Our next goal for the truck really is be able to get the thing in the threes on the big tire. So the big tires are a little bit tricky when it comes to you get too much power too soon, you shake the tire, not enough power, drive into power, you shake the tire. We know it's there, we just have to get our 60 foot better, and that's one of our next goals. And then once we go back on radials, we want to try to get the thing in the 380s. You know, it's just baby steps. There's more powerful power plants out there that are more mainstream that would be easier, but because we bleed diesel, we got to do it the hard way.
And whatever Firepunk Diesel does next, we can't wait to see it. Up next, our Ram is a little rough, but we've got a plan to get it roadworthy again.
Plus, we find out how the backyard small block holds up on the dyno.
Yeah, look at that. You know how they say the faucet in a plumber's home always drips because he's too busy working on other people's pipes? It's kind of that way at our shop too. So it should be no surprise that we'd end up bringing one of our trucks in for some much needed attention.
For years now, we have been teaming up with RockAuto.com on our driveway rescues to get vehicles in desperate need of attention back on the highway. And in that time, we have worked on some very interesting vehicles and met some cool people. Like Mac Metcalf, who had a 72 Charger that was overheating. We helped him overhaul the cooling system and made some timing adjustments to get him and his dog Higgins back on the road.
Wanna go get some ice cream?
And Kelly Smotherman, who found her dream truck, a 63 C10, for sale in an empty field. When she discovered it had some fueling issues, we hopped in the driveway rescue van with a bunch of repair parts from RockAuto.com and got her Chevy rolling again. Today, we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're gonna driveway rescue ourselves. We have a vehicle here in the shop that is in dire need of some work.
The guys down in Carcass recently had this truck in their shop for some suspension upgrades, and they mentioned to us that it was running a little rough and had a few lights on the dash. It's a 2006 Dodge Ram with a 5.7 Hemi, and we told them we'd gladly take a look at it, see if we could figure it out. Oh, that doesn't work. You
I
got that?
guarantee you.
There you go. Yeah,
That's why
what
this
that's
is
for.
here. So, let's see here.
There you go. That'll probably stay for a while.
Stay. All right, first thing, no charging. So
Yeah.
diagnosis, bad alternator, get that changed first.
Yeah, because that can cause a bunch of other problems if the battery system's not tip-top. So we'll do that first. Probably throw a belt on it too, because that one looks kind of rough. And then we'll go from there.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Before doing any work on the electrical system, we always disconnect the battery. It's easy to forget, but it's crucial to keep everything safe. Somehow, Pat volunteered me to take out the old alternator. After removing some creaky bolts and making good use of a pry bar, it finally broke free from its mounting bracket.
We are well into the repairs on our Dodge, and I must say that that alternator came off very well. What we've done is logged on to rockauto.com and got everything we needed for our setup. Now that includes both OEM and aftermarket parts. They have a wide selection of whatever you need. It starts with our alternator. This is a AC Delco Professional Series brand new alternator, and we also decided, because we had a misfire, we were going to replace all of the coils and spark plugs, so we picked those up as well. We have OEM quality parts like our O2 sensors. We're going to have to replace them. We'll finish off the work with a fresh oil change, a new serpentine belt, and new strut rods for the hood.
I gotta say, I disagree with Pat. The old alternator put up a little bit of a fight coming out, but the new one drops into place very easy. With the power cable tightened down and the wiring harness connected, it's good to go. No one enjoys replacing accessory belts, but they are cheap and we already had ours off to replace the alternator. It's never a bad idea to replace one when working in the engine bay. Finally, we'll reconnect the battery to check our alternator.
An important step after every repair is to make sure that it was done correctly and it actually works. So we're going to go ahead and see what our battery's at now, since it wasn't charging before.
11.82, that stinks.
That's really dead. Go ahead and start it up and we'll see if it starts charging.
Where are the keys to this damn thing?
They're in the visor, I told you that.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead and start it up.
Here we go. Clear prop.
All right. Say our battery's a little dead, so the voltage is a little high, but the alternator is charging, so we're good. That's good.
Oh. All right.
Got her?
Before we go any further, we'll replace the sagging strut rods under the hood. This job is pretty easy, especially if you have an assistant. Once the retaining clips are released, the old strut can be pulled off and the new one snapped into place. These small quality of life improvements can make future work on your vehicle much more enjoyable, especially now that we don't have to work under a drooping truck hood. Look at that.
There you go.
Oh, I can feel it.
Ooh, yeah, that's nice.
That's the cat's pajamas right there.
There we go. I feel a lot better now.
Yeah, that's way safe.
All right.
On to the next. Sometimes it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to fix a poorly running engine. But sometimes it's not too bad. The next issue we're going to fix with our Hemi is why it is running so rough. It turns out it has a completely dead cylinder, number 3. A quick way of determining if a coil pack is a problem is you can take the coil pack out of the dead cylinder and put it in a different one. In this case, we put it in number 1, and the dead cylinder followed the coil pack. So that means it's got a bad one in it. So if we're going to replace one, we're going to replace them all. So we got a set of Denzos from Rock Auto, and we're going to put them all in. Another thing while we're in there is we're going to replace all 16 spark plugs, just so we know they're good as well. So time to get to work. If you're working on a low mileage vehicle, it might make sense to just replace the single bad coil pack. They can be expensive and they often last the lifetime of your truck without failure. Since this Ram has a lot of miles on it and several of the coils are a pain to get at, we decided to change all of them and be done with it for good. The spark plugs receive a small amount of anti-seize compound before installation. These are NGK iridium plugs and are designed to last up to 50,000 miles.
Oxygen sensors can be difficult to remove, and they often need to be heated before taking them out. To make things easier, we'll use an oxygen sensor socket. It has a cutout so it clears the sensor wires, and it works much better than an open-ended wrench, which can round off the sensor hex. We had a code for a bad heater circuit in our Bank 1 Sensor 2 oxygen sensor. After verifying this with a multimeter, the whole sensor can be replaced with a factory Mopar piece from rockauto.com. Our ram is a little past due for an oil change. After draining the oil pan and removing the old filter, we'll pre-fill the new one so the engine has pressure faster during startup. Of course, the oil filter gasket receives a light coating of oil to keep it from catching and tearing during installation. We'll fill the engine with 5W20 full synthetic oil, which is the manufacturer's recommendation. Now we've got exactly what we like. No codes on startup.
All right, everything's fixed on this thing. I cleared all the codes and they are all gone for good. How's that alternator install?
It went smooth for me. I mean, work fascinates me. I could sit and watch it all day. So the nice thing about all of this is we got online on rockauto.com, got everything we needed. It was easy, it showed up, and everything fit. So now we have a reliable running truck, and we don't have to worry about it running like it did when it came in. So.
Here in the shop, we really don't have to do a lot of diagnosis, and on our Ram, our fixes really weren't that complicated. But with modern cars becoming more and more computerized, it's easy for a technician to feel overwhelmed without high-level factory training. Matco has solved that with their ProAssist remote support and programming device. This gives you direct access to over 100 OE-trained master technicians that have brand-specific training for US, European, and Asian manufacturers. These master technicians can give you remote diagnostic support and access to OE scan tool software. If you already have OE software, the unit can even be used as a J2534 pass-through device. One of the best features is that it offers remote assisted programming or flashing for new components when they're being installed. All of this adds up to the technician or shop being more efficient and taking less time for repairs. If you want to know more about any of Matco's diagnostic equipment, you can reach out to your local distributor or go to matcotools.com. Up next, we put our home-built small block to the test in the dyno cell. Recently, we decided to build a small block Chevy much like we do at home, with basic hand tools, lots of sweat equity, and no dedicated machine shop equipment. Even though we missed the comforts of our shop, we enjoyed getting back to basics and we're very happy with the results.
Shortly before midnight, we test fired the engine and it ran great. It all made us curious to know just how much power our home-built 350 makes. Today, we're gonna find out. We lit it in the parking lot. We haven't touched anything, so see if it'll...
It still should.
Give it a little gas a haul there. Just like in a parking lot.
Oh my gosh, like a dream.
Well, it could be a nightmare here in a second, depending on what happens. Now, do you know what the timing is?
No, I don't think you do either.
Neither do I.
I think we set it by ear in the parking lot, and it's still there.
If it starts like that, you know it's not. It's in a realm of decent, because it wouldn't start like that. If it was late, it would backfire out. If it was early, it would lug and kick back. So it didn't do either one of those. So whatever it is what it is.
Yeah. No,
let's check it after this run. This will be kind of exciting.
Get some little heat in it. This thing runs really good. It still has great oil pressure.
And you know why you're dynoing this?
In case it blows up, you can blame it on me.
Absolutely.
Knew it. When you said, "Here, you can sit in this chair," I was like, "There's something going on here."
I'm gonna be back here like this. Smooth.
Yeah.
Good oil pressure. No way.
Yeah. Look at that.
No way. I cannot wait to see what the timing is right there, because that actually made decent power.
That's not bad.
276
Yeah.
at 4,800 knots. And see how it's already trailing down?
Yep, already starting to
Yep.
go off a little bit. Not diving, but just starting to go off. So, yeah.
345.5 pound-feet
Where's that
at 3,300.
Wow, that's pretty
Dang.
nice. I mean,
that's flat too.
yeah. I mean, because we did, basically all we did this was a cam and intake swap, you know?
Oh my goodness
So,
gracious.
That's actually really nice.
I
mean,
am
yeah.
officially impressed with what's going on.
Yeah, for a parking lot engine, I mean, over 325 pretty much everywhere, 325 pound-feet. That's good.
You know what was really cool about this one is we didn't have to do a lot of stuff to it as far as like the distributor, right? You hook 2 wires up.
Oh yeah.
And
that whole Protronics bundle is like super easy to hook up.
Right.
And I mean, they made it really easy for the parking lot. Like you said, we only needed power and ground
Boy.
and a coil, and that was it.
I gotta go shoot the timing just to see what
Okay.
it is. By pure luck, timing comes in at 34 degrees, just about dead center in a good range for this engine. Let's make another run. Our oil pressure gauge is still attached to the front of it.
Yeah, you like that?
It's just gonna print that same number.
That is
Which
just
it should.
super smooth.
Which it should. Hey, look at that.
Yeah,
Yep, 273.6.
345 and a half. Pretty much the same.
Hey, shut her down, Charlie.
Heck yeah.
That's a nice engine.
Yeah.
For more information on anything you've seen today, please visit PowerNationTV.com.